Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. And man, this episode of NXT, it had the women featured in another solid bout, as per usual. Had a great main event between old rivals settling some business. New number one contenders were crowned, and a man finally broke free from his cage and was able to rage. This NXT had everything. Partner, what'd you think of it?
I think that the Wednesday Night War is producing the most compelling pro wrestling content in over a decade.
You know what? That's a beautiful sentiment, and what makes it so beautiful is I echo it entirely, and I really can't find any contention with it. Between Lucha Underground and NXT back-to-back, you know, you came up with the word so long ago that perfectly encapsulated all of it. It's an oasis. You know, and I know originally I think you were referring to just NXT at the time, but it really has become this whole Wednesday night block of pro wrestling, and it's just so incredible. I think for any fan that's just become so disgruntled with the main roster product of WWE, or hell, you know, and I say this with all sincerity, maybe you're a TNA fan, or maybe you're a fan of a brand that just isn't doing it for you, these two products I think deliver so consistently that they win everybody over, and if they haven't, I say in response, give it time.
Yeah.
So, with that said, do you have anything you want to say about, you know, your thoughts very quickly on tonight's episode, or do you want to just get right into our first segment?
You know, I think that from now on, whenever we get a Raw that's as crappy as this week's Raw is, we should just, like, watch a random old episode of NXT and review that on Monday nights instead.
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to that idea. Yeah, I really wouldn't be. But, with that said, let us get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. I have no heats of the night tonight. I really enjoyed what NXT produced here. I like the things that the groundwork they laid, so to speak, for next week's show, because we did get some teasers for that as well. So yeah, no complaints here. What about you, Ashton?
Oh man, what is there to complain about?
You know, and that's my sentiment exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what. Here's something that I have a major concern about.
Okay.
The WWE Network literally spoiled this episode of NXT during this episode of NXT while running an ad for next episode of NXT.
Yeah. And
because
here's the thing. Yeah.
Right after they talked about how Alex Riley needs to beat CJ Parker in order to get his match with Kevin Owens, they run an ad for NXT in Columbus next week, which just so happens to feature, and they prominently featured in the ad, Kevin Owens versus Alex Riley. And they even showed Owens talking to Riley after the match, which hadn't even aired yet.
And see, we have to hold everybody to the same standard because, as you know, TNA found themselves in a similar controversy with Destination America. They had a battle royal for, I guess, the number one contender for their world title, and the winner was already announced to get their championship match the following week. Well, then that just totally makes the Battle Royal devoid of any kind of purpose. And here WWE goes with their NXT product, and it's like all this hype and this build around, oh, how is Alex Riley going to do? What's the fallout? Well, we already know the fallout, so while it was still entertaining, you don't have the same investment that you would have had if you were completely, you know, on the other side of the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like, apparently Vince McMahon is pulling an Eric Bischoff on NXT. Owens versus Riley, that'll put butts in seats.
Yeah, I wasn't really a fan of that at all. I found that to be weird myself. And, you know, again, they had another teaser out as well, which kind of spoiled another matchup, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, we get it, NXT. You have this big show next week, but how about waiting until the end of the show to advertise it when, you know, all of the dust has settled from this show?
Yeah, I don't understand why you couldn't have shaved, like, a minute or two off of, like, the main event matchup.
Well, they wouldn't have had to. They wouldn't have had to shave anything. They could have just rearranged the show so that the ads for next week's Columbus show played at the end of the show instead of in the middle of it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
No editing down required. Just rearrange it.
Right, yeah, definitely. But that was your only concern that you wanted to address?
Yes.
All right, then with that said, let us get right on to our NXT review. And Ashton, how do we open this baby up?
We open this baby up cold with an Enzo Amore and Big Cass entrance. They come out and they do their shtick. And they do their, everything that they do in the beginning that kind of happens every time they show up. And by the time they get in the ring, they go, as for the Lucha Dragons. And then Cass grabs the mic and he goes, dragons? You call yourselves dragons? And then Enzo's like, more like Geico lizards. And then Cass goes, either save us 15% or more on our car insurance or get out of our way. And then Enzo goes, because there's going to be an accident. It's just so good. And then Cass goes, because we're on our way to the NXT tag team titles, and anybody that stands in our way, there's only one way to describe you. And I'm going to spell it out for you. S-A-W-F-T, soft.
The opening may have been cold, but this crowd was hot for these two guys, as they usually are.
So good, though.
They are. And you know what? I have said it time and time again, and I think to do so again would really just be a matter of redundancy, so I'm going to avoid doing that. But what I will say is their opponents wore the Lucha Dragons. I think, as you noted, Ashton, number one contendership for the NXT Tag Team Championships, hang in the balance. And it's funny because when you look at this match and you think about the nature of Enzo and Big Cass, at least to me, you think, wow, what a mismatch this is. Because, yeah, you have Cass, but, the Lucha Dragons are just so dominant, especially when they can establish a pace in the matchup. But why I think this match works, and they illustrated it very early on, Kalisto and Enzo are very similar in size, so it's not like Enzo is going to be picked on and bullied and, being like that kid that's just tormented in the sandbox. He's going to be able to stand up for himself and actually build a legitimate line of offense. And, I liked the exchanges that him and Kalisto had here in this match.
Yeah, it was good stuff. I think my favorite part about this was that Enzo and Big Cass even kind of simulated Lucha Dragons tag team move, because Lucha Dragons always do that wheelbarrow senton, right? Well, Enzo and Big Cass did sort of like a layman's version of it.
Yeah. I like that too. I thought that was a very nice touch. They definitely gelled more as a tag team as far as the repertoire is concerned. And I think the best part of this match for me, I always like to consider every gimmick, every pairing, anything that a wrestler or wrestler is bringing to the table. It's kind of like, we have to go through a proof of concept, that being, is the crowd going to embrace it or not? Now, we already know that Enzo and Cass have proven themselves. That's without question. But we really got to find out tonight just how over they are, because not only was the crowd poking fun at the Lucha Dragons with Geico Lizards chants, they even got booed at one point. This crowd was 100%. I didn't really feel any divide. Maybe at one point in the matchup, Ashton, but it was very minimal. This crowd was solidly behind Enzo and Big Cass, and it's such a relief to see just how over they are, because it shows you the kind of reaction it'll be when it's for the titles.
Yeah, man, these guys are so crazily over, and I love that they're turning Blake and Murphy heel to feud with these guys, too. It just works out so well.
It really does. It makes sense. And why wouldn't these guys be heel? Look at who they beat. They beat the Lucha Dragons, who, as they themselves noted, beat the Ascension, and then they beat them in a rematch. So, Blake and Murphy, their stock is high right now, and, they are young, so it kind of goes with, when you're young, you got that chip on your shoulder, you're cocky. It's just a perfect fit, and it's for a perfect program in my mind. So I'm looking forward to this matchup when it finally occurs.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And even if the match itself isn't super duper compelling, they're going to tell a great story. Enzo's going to be a great underdog. And I think that it's one of those things where the first match almost has to end in some kind of a screwy finish with Blake and Murphy retaining the titles. But I don't know. I feel like Enzo and Big Cass, that kind of character that they have going for them, is better off chasing the championships than being the champions.
And I think we've had this conversation before. I do have confidence in Enzo and Big Cass to be the NXT Tag Team Champions. I can see where you're coming from about being chasers, because I think they've got that likability and that sympathy going for them that, what I would fear, even though I think NXT is kind of above that, I would fear that if they did win the tag titles, the crowd might turn on them.
Yeah.
And, I don't want that to happen to them because they've got such a great thing going.
Right.
But, at the same time...
Because once they're the champions, why cheer for them?
Right, and that's kind of, my thing is I'm wondering why, you would have any reason, any stake in these guys when they've reached the mountaintop. The whole point of being invested in a babyface is to reach whatever destination they've got their eyes on, maybe to extract a pound of flesh from somebody they're getting vengeance from, or getting a pound of gold, so to speak, pursuing a championship. But, for Enzo and Cass, obviously it's the latter motivation. Once they've achieved that, where do you go from there? Because then it's all about keeping it, and that's not nearly as interesting a ride. So it's a toss-up. I think just being a fan of these guys, I would like to see them get their moment. And hell, maybe they can, and they treat it like they treated Sami Zayn's first NXT World Title run. They just drop it the first defense.
Yep.
And then that way you give them their moment and you protect them at the same time. Everybody goes home happy. So we'll see how it's done.
They can be sort of like I don't think they should win the tag titles off of Blake and Murphy. I think that they are still a good few months away from that point where they need to win the titles. And then, like you said, they would be a great heartbreak story on top of that. But I think that Blake and Murphy need to hold the titles for at least a little while longer.
I want them to be established as the team to beat. That they're young, they're athletic. Again, they gel incredibly well. They beat the Lucha Dragons, so that's great on their track record. But now Enzo and Big Cass can say the same thing. And I really like that they had to go through that team to be the number one contenders, because now, Blake and Murphy don't have that leg to stand on anymore. To be like, oh, well, we beat these guys, who did you beat? It's almost like they're on equal footing now to create that ambiguity of who will emerge as tag team champions. It's not some foregone conclusion. So I'm looking forward to this title match.
Yeah. All right. So did we actually talk about how this match finished?
The match finished. Cass got the East River Crossing, that swing bottom, seated swing bottom.
Yeah, it's almost like a swinging side effect.
Yeah. Tags in Enzo, and then he kind of has him like in a military press, but then into a splash on Kalisto.
Yeah.
And that's how they get the 3 count and become number one contenders.
Yep. It was awesome. And I love the chivalry chants, too, because at one point, Enzo was thrown to the outside and he was out. And Cass comes over and tries to help him up, and then the Lucha Dragons double dive onto what they thought was going to be both of them, but Cass pushes Enzo out of the way to save him, kind of pulling what Aiden English did with Simon Gotch at the NXT TakeOver. Was it Our Evolution that it happened?
I think it was Our Evolution, yes.
Yeah, at that show. And then Cass gets back in the ring and starts kind of running roughshod over the Lucha Dragons. He drags Enzo over to the corner, and then he does what you said. He does the swinging side effect and then the gorilla press splash onto Kalisto. So, yeah, Kalisto eating the pin, too. I think that's more curious almost than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, very interesting dynamic where this whole match just broke down, but Big Cass and Enzo Amore are the number one contenders to the NXT Tag Team titles. Feels good to say that. I never really thought they'd get to this point, so yeah. We'll see how it all shakes out.
Absolutely. So at this point is when we had our announcement that next week was going to be NXT Columbus, Alex Riley versus Kevin Owens, Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks. And this led into an Alex Riley video package, which I thought was really well done because they did a really good job of hyping sort of what Alex Riley was before he went to the commentary booth.
Yes, that's why I really appreciate it. It's the same reason I appreciated the video packages that they made for the Brian Kendrick when he had his match against Finn Balor, and Rhino, a week after he returned to, squash whatever jobber he squashed. I forget his name. But, it's a nice refresher for the audience. It catches everybody up to speed, and when you're caught up to speed, then you're able to invest. So I think it's really smart by NXT, and I, too, enjoyed it. Yeah,
absolutely. Up next, though, we did have our second match of the night, Carmella versus Alexa Bliss. And Carmella does her shtick, pretty much kind of the same deal as Enzo and Big Cass, except with significantly less crowd interaction because they don't like her nearly as much. As far as this match goes, though, honestly, it felt for a lot of this match, it felt like a squash match. It felt like Carmella was just dominating Alexa Bliss. She had the upper hand for, I would say, a good 85 to 90% of the match itself. and Alexa just kept on kicking out, kept on kicking out, kept on trucking through. And next thing you know, Carmella goes for a kick to Alexa's side, and she catches it. And she just starts wailing away on her. And she did – what did she use to set up for her new finisher, John? I forget.
Oh, man, I forget as well. I'm trying to – I don't want to say it was some kind of Hurricane Rana because I don't think so.
Well, she did do that. I know she did that. She did.
Yeah, she did do that.
Yeah, she did the head scissors takedown, but I don't remember if that was what she did to set up for the Sparkle Splash, which is, I mean, imagine a super duper poor man's version of the Spiral Tap.
Yeah.
It's a top rope. It's a top rope senton, but she rotates her body midair so that she lands rather than as a senton, as a splash.
Yeah. I like it. You know, apparently she can do a 450 because you were getting excited because it seemed like she was going to go for it.
Oh, I know. I wanted to see it so bad.
I mean, obviously I would prefer that if I know that's on the table. But this certainly wasn't bad. And you know what I really appreciated from this match was two things. A, I loved how dominant Carmella was because, you know, given that Alexa Bliss is a smaller worker and she is a babyface, she should have to struggle and fight and this and that. It just seems like, you know, basic storytelling 101, so I appreciated that. And finally, and I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm going to take the risk here and say finally, I've gotten to see more variance in Alexa Bliss's offense because I was like, what else can she do? You know, is she capable of anything else? You know, she did a very unique pinning combination. She did an arm drag off the top rope, and she transitioned into a cool-looking pin.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me a little bit, though I know it wasn't exactly like it, but Drago's Dragon's Tail pinning combination.
Really? You got that from that?
I mean, no, I know they're completely different, but that's the kind of vibe I got with the sequence she went through to get that pin.
Huh.
So, yeah, you know, I like that. And then, yeah, the Sparkle Splash, so it's cool. That actually, you know what, seeing the variance in her offense that she's finally bringing to the table, that's what I needed to see to really get pumped to see her versus Sasha Banks. Because, I mean, these two have competed against each other before. Sasha's always, you know, placed her boot on Alexa Bliss's throat, so to speak. But maybe now Alexa Bliss will have more of a fighting chance this time. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. I will say this. I have been saying for how long now that it's going to be Alexa Bliss going after Sasha Banks and not Bayley.
Yeah. I mean, you've been saying that for really quite some time now.
It's literally since Sasha won the title.
Yeah.
And now it looks like it's happening. I mean, I'm not saying that Bayley won't go after it because there's a very distinct possibility that Sasha will sort of come out of the other end of this feud with Alexa Bliss as the victor and retain the championship and then have to move on to someone else. But I just want to kind of let it be known that I called this Alexa Bliss kind of going after the women's title with Sasha. And it really just makes sense because, first of all, they're Triple H's chosen ones. Because you look at Triple H's WrestleMania, was it 29 or 30?
30.
30 entrance. And the three women that were out there to take all of the sort of armor off of him and let him walk to the ring as the game were Alexa Bliss, Sasha Banks, and Charlotte. And Charlotte is already the frickin' one. She's the chosen one. She's the nepotism. She's the everything. She's on her way up to the main roster before you can even blink an eye. She'll probably debut the night after WrestleMania. But then Sasha and Alexa are the other two, and it's just simple math. The 1 and 1 equals 2, and Alexa Bliss makes sense to go after Sasha. They're also the two, I believe, smallest women on the roster, so it makes sense that Sasha's first opponent as champion is somebody who compares to her physically.
Definitely, and they do have the little bit of a story there because Sasha, you know, messed up Alexa Bliss's nose.
Yep.
You know, got very physical with her, and now Alexa's trying to get a measure of revenge. And here's the thing.
Can I just say, it would have been amazing if Alexa would have come back with one of those, like, Cody Rhodes style face masks on.
I know, right? It would have been like, what the heck is this? But, man, I really...
Like what Trish Stratus wore for that long period of time?
Yeah, damn you, now I want that now. Son of a bitch. But it's like, what I love about this, too, because I know there have got to be Bayley fans that are like, oh, but what about Bayley? But it also makes sense here because Bayley needs time, and I'm not just saying, oh, she's got to get wins back and this and that. No, she's got her own little story going on. Because she's got Emma in her ear, she's got all these people in her ear, she's got her own personal, you know, professional struggles, and she's got to decide what side of the fence she wants to be on. Yep. Does she want to stick to her current creed, or does she want to get a little bit more aggressive, a bit more compromising in her ethics to achieve results? When Bayley figures out her identity and who she is, she's going to pursue that championship, I promise you. And she may end up winning it, though I want Sasha to be on top for a very, very long time. But Bayley's got to resolve her identity issues first. So Alexa Bliss, I think, is the perfect filler while she sorts that out. And, yeah, I mean, just adding more credibility to Sasha's already amazing reign. So, good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now we get a pair of promos that are very compelling. First, Alex Riley. I really, really like this promo. The interviewer asks him kind of what he's feeling, and he says something about how he's going to explain it in a way that he can understand. And he says about how, imagine yourself being locked in a cage and you're starving and everyone else around you is getting to eat. And he kind of goes on this draw. John, do you remember kind of the more specific side of this promo? Because I really loved this promo.
Well, yeah, he goes with the whole cage thing and watching everybody else get to eat. And, you want to eat and you go and they say, sorry, kid, there's nothing for you. Maybe next week. And you're hoping and praying for something, anything, because you don't know what's going to happen to you in here. You're locked up. And he actually says, I have to thank Kevin Owens for this. He gave me an out. He gave me a reason to fight. And my personal favorite line was, Kevin Owens likes to talk about that he did this for his family. Well, I have no family. My family's out there. And it's time that I join them. It's time to fight. It's time to rage.
Yes. When did he all of a sudden develop this rage gimmick? When did that become a thing?
That's been a thing for a while.
Really?
In a sense, yes. Because you know that I'm plugged in to the dirt sheets, primarily no DQ. And they would always give Twitter updates on Riley because he had the whole Free Riley campaign.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole metaphor of the cage comes from. Because,
right.
He's made reference to that before.
Right.
And I think he's made references, allusions to rage before as well. So, yeah, this has kind of been a pre-established thing if you're plugged into social media, which I'm pretty sure, WWE counts on most of its fan base to be. But I'm just glad he was able to bring it up in this type of a forum and not have it be like something the commentary ascribes to him or something. It comes from his own mouth. He gets the time to really piece it together. So I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but if he keeps up on this trajectory, stays on this kind of track, you may be looking at an Alex Riley fan in me, because I was never as big on him as I know other people were. Like, I'd watch him, I thought, well, he's pretty good, and yeah, I even enjoyed his stuff with The Miz to a degree, but I really didn't see, like, anything too special in him, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing right now, so keep it up.
Absolutely. All right, so the second promo that we get is Tyler Breeze, and John, Tyler Breeze is your guy. This was hilarious. This was amazing. This was Tyler Breeze in his best form.
Oh, God. I want him to get back to primetime so bad.
Primetime players?
That would be amazing if, he wasn't so
They would do the
gorgeous.
millions of dollars dance around him, and he would just look at them like they're crazy and then slap Titus O'Neil in the face.
Yeah, and then
they'd be like, don't touch me!
Yeah, don't touch me! I said, don't touch me! Cue duck face. But, yeah, I shouldn't say that when he did get to main event tonight, but I digress. He says, Hideo, that's how he starts. It didn't have to get ugly. Well, you were involved, so I guess it had to have. But, he pretty much says that, he's gonna beat Itami tonight, and he's gonna show him that the King of Cuteville isn't just a pretty face.
The King of Cuteville, he did say that, didn't he?
He did. I mean, that is one of his nicknames. He's got more nicknames than John Morrison at this point.
They are practically the same human being.
I know, right? Oh, man. But yeah, dude, you know what a huge fan I am of Tyler Breeze, which I've already expressed to people the irony of that, because when he first debuted, I could not stand him. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And it just grew into something absolutely amazing. And when I say Pride Night, I should clarify, like, it's cool that he's still in this spot and working these kinds of programs. I want to see him back in the NXT title hunt. That's what I want to see. But all in due time. But this is a fun promo.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great. So now we actually get this match. We actually get Alex Riley versus CJ Parker. And here's my thing. When Alex Riley's music hits and he comes out and he's interacting with the crowd, there is just something about this guy where you just get, it's kind of like Drew Galloway being on the independent scene. He just stands out. He's a freaking star, man.
You know what? I have to agree with you. I almost feel like, and I hate to be that guy because I don't mean to come off as a jerk when I say this, but I think almost like making him watch everybody else do what he loves for as long as they made him do it was probably one of the best things they could have done for him. Because there's a fire in his belly now that I think I really connect with, and it's just awesome to witness. To backpedal just a little bit, though, I do have to give credit to CJ Parker very quickly. He still has a line to my funny bone, and I think yours as well, because he's started to cut a promo. He's like, yeah, let's talk about the world for a second. My world and why it stinks. Oh, CJ, just get back in your hybrid. But,
he's so good.
He really, I'm telling you, he filled the void that Bo Dallas left. If only he'd get more time to actually make it worthwhile. And I can't believe I'm saying that about CJ Parker. But,
awesome.
But yeah, back to Riley, though. I mean, I definitely see what you're saying. I think he's got a look that just oozes. You know, if you give me the right program, if you give me the right material, I can run with it. And he's just got that main event look about him, to me. It's a shame that I really don't perceive him, and I don't mean this as an insult to him, I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, I don't perceive him as anything more than a roadblock to Finn Balor, but maybe after the fact he can build himself up to be something more, to be a formidable contender. Because, yeah, it was great to see Riley back in his element. And see, that's another thing, when you're as removed from it as long as he was, like, I was jazzed up to see him compete, and I had fun with this match. So
Yeah, this was... I really liked that we got sort of the struggle. Early on in the match, right when it started, it felt like Alex Riley completely forgot how to wrestle. Like, he had no clue what he was doing. He didn't even know how to get out of a headlock. Like, it just felt like he was out of his element, and he didn't know there was rust. There was ring rust, and he had to get back on that bicycle and pedal.
Yeah, exactly.
But eventually he started to pick it up a little bit. There was one pretty cool spot where he did sort of that Ted DiBiase spot where he cuts himself off halfway into the ring, turns around, hits the ropes while the other guy is running out, and then they turn around and he clotheslines them. That was pretty good. He did sort of like a hangman's variation of a moonlight drive, which I thought was really cool. But he did that to set up for... And I never thought I'd see the day that Alex Riley would be able to pull something like this off. A freaking blockbuster.
Yeah, very interesting to see a man of his stature do a move like that. And he does pick up the win off of it. The crowd received Riley very well. There were Riley chants, ringing throughout in this matchup. He just seemed so happy. I mean, you could see it in his face and his body language to be competing again. I think he really... missed it. I think, of course, he was grateful to be a part of WWE in any capacity, but man, to be in the ring, I think had to be a real rush for him. But then Kevin Owens emerges, and he has some choice words for Riley. Pretty much calls him the stupidest man, I think in sports entertainment.
He said in NXT.
In NXT, thank you. And he said, as if that tattoo on your back wasn't confirmation enough, then you decide to end your own career as a commentator, only to have me end your in-ring career as well. And he said, and then I'm going to stop the rise of Finn Balor. So, I mean, of course, and I think that was smart by Owens, keeping Finn Balor in the back of our minds, as if we could forget somebody so wonderful. But it does remind us that, hey, there's going to be a championship defense down the road, and Finn Balor isn't anybody to mess with. After that, though, I do just want to mention very quickly, a Riley chant does break out again, and you could see Riley actually in tears, and the reason I bring that up is because, as you know earlier, I followed all of his social media, on No DQ when he had this whole campaign going on, and when he had that match, he said, this is a moment I'm never going to forget for as long as I live, and he thanked the crowd. So I'm actually really happy for him on a personal level. Whether you like a guy or not, when they're able to do what they love and they have moments like that, you can't help but love that, so good for him.
Yeah, man, it's so weird to kind of come back to saying this because it almost feels like he fell off the face of the planet, but I've always been a fan of this dude.
Right.
Like, dating back to FCW, I've always been a fan of him. I've never been a fan of him as a babyface, but even now, he's kind of got that fire going on where he's making the babyface thing work for him.
Right, and I think that's what's making me connect with him, because I could see what you're saying. Like, even when he turned on The Miz and he had that whole grand babyface turn, I'm like, well, that's great and all, but what about...
Can I say something about that?
Sure, absolutely.
Because to me, that could have worked, but the one thing that they did ruined it for me.
And let me guess, it was that they, pretty much did it over and over again. It seemed like overexposure with, like...
Yeah. Well, and to get more specific, you know how the first time Riley really turned on The Miz and gave him that awesome beatdown?
Yeah.
Well, when he first kind of got a chance to breathe, he did this thing where he almost wiped his face, right?
Right.
He used both hands and he wiped his face all the way down, like, towards his chest. And it was like, that was like symbolic of like him shedding the skin that was the Miz's slave. And now he's this new man. And then every single other time that he ended up beating down the Miz after that, he did the same exact face wipe thing. And I was like, okay, dude, we get it. You're new. Now do something new, please.
Yeah. And see, that's was my gripe, little things like that. And again, just the beat downs over and over. And it's like, okay, let's move on. But this, with the fire and the edge and maybe even a little bit of a bitterness starting to, erode away because he is back to doing what he loves. It gives him such an interesting dimension that I think we can get behind and that will make him a great foil for somebody like Kevin Owens. It's funny because Kevin Owens' whole story is, oh, well, Sami Zayn got called up before me, and I had to do all this just to get here, and that's great, and that's certainly true because you and I, we know that story. But with Riley, he can come back and say, well, imagine sitting at that table, and everybody's eating, but you can't eat, and I had to do that for 2 years. So they both have a similar kind of pain going for them, and that's what's going to make this clash, I think, very interesting. So... good stuff.
Absolutely. All right, so up next we had Tyler Breeze versus Hideo Itami, and I mean, what more is there to say about these guys? They've already worked 2 matches, maybe even 3. No, it was 2.
This was their third match,
and they've all been great, and this one was no different. This one was great, but all I can say is Breeze wins. Breeze wins. Breeze wins.
He does win, and he wins big. I mean, the ending sequence. I mean, just to get right to it, just to say how it happened. Itami misses his drop kick in the corner, and I even said, "Oh, that looked bad." And Breeze must have had the same thought because he immediately capitalizes with the beauty shot.
Yeah,
gets right into the pin, gets the 3 count. Breeze finally gets a win over Itami. The series is still 2-1, so you could say Itami is still like ahead. Ashton, you even came right out when I mentioned that to you in conversation. You said that they may have another match now. Breeze may be square, and then they have another match, and then we really see who the victor is. And if they're going to do that, let me just put this caveat. I wouldn't mind it, but make the final match, make the true ultimate rubber match for NXT Championship #1 contendership. Like, I just feel like there should be some kind of a stake if these two guys are going at it that many times. So yeah, that would be my only caveat, but I'm cool with it if that is the route they're going to go. By the way, quick side note, just because I'm that guy, I guess we've completely abandoned Marcus Louis. Haven't heard about him in a while, and Breeze got the win here. So, I just mentioned that because it's not like I'm a Marcus Louis fan or anything, but I think you know, Ashton, because I mentioned this before, that crap annoys me. I hate when a story gets started and then just dropped off the face of the earth. So yeah, thanks a lot for that, guys. But hey, Breeze is still in the main event spot. He beat Hideo Itami, which I do think is a big deal. So good stuff. And yeah, fun matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, do we have anything else left to say about this show itself?
Not the show itself, no. So I guess with that said, let's get on to our next segment. High spots and low shots. And you know what? I'm going to have to say my low shots are the Lucha Dragons.
Aha.
I mean, you guys were once a team that, would run roughshod over everybody, and then it does kind of seem to me when the competition gets upped a little bit, you guys, for as quick as you are, really can't seem to keep pace. And I mean, this was Enzo and Big Cass, guys that I think were more like a comedy tag team for a time, but they just beat a very legitimate team in the Lucha Dragons. So
yes, they did.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it's almost like they're the Ascension in reverse, because it's kind of like happened to the Ascension on the main roster, losing all these teams, and now it just seems like Lucha Dragons are suffering that fate down in NXT. So yeah, they're my low shot.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't say I blame you there. I think that my low shot, I'm gonna just kind of keep it simple here. My low shot is gonna be Hideo Itami, because it's kind of at a point now where he can win any match that he doesn't screw up in, and he screwed up in this match and he lost because of it.
I think that's an excellent point you made, Ashton. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like Breeze outmaneuvered or wrestled Itami in that sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could say he outmaneuvered him, but he didn't out wrestle him.
Exactly. It was just Itami made one miscalculation, but with somebody, and I love that too, because it's somebody as experienced and somebody as focused, as commentary likes to note, as Tyler Breeze when it's game time. That's all he needs. So I think that's an excellent choice on your part. I wholeheartedly approve. And you know what? Because I'm in such a good mood, my high spot's Alex Riley. Again, never been the biggest fan of the guy, but not only did he win, and he seems like he's going to get what he wants in a match with Kevin Owens. I mean, hell, it was confirmed in those ads, so we know. But he's back to doing what he loves, more importantly, after 2 years. And he was overwhelmed with emotion. The crowd received him, which I think is great, because you wouldn't have wanted him to be dead for something like this. It was his night tonight, for more reasons than one. So I give him my high spot.
Yeah. All right. Well, my high spot is for what I feel like is going to be the first time ever, maybe, and hopefully the first time in a long time, in the future, that is, Alexa Bliss.
Wow, nice. I love it.
Yeah, because Carmella, even though I think she has lost one match, maybe two, she's no slouch. She has a very good win-loss record. And I think that these girls are both booked relatively strongly, and Alexa Bliss handled her tonight. I mean, I shouldn't say handled in a sense that she dominated her, because she didn't. If anything, Carmella dominated Alexa. But she handled her as in, like, she took Carmella's best shot, didn't lose from it, and still ended up winning.
I completely agree with you on all counts. I mean, here's the thing. Let's make it clear, because you seem to ask in kind of a questioning tone. Carmella has only suffered one loss up to this point.
Then it was Blue Pants.
It was Blue Pants, and let's be clear. I mean, that was only because Enzo Amore distracted Carmella.
Right.
So it's not even like Carmella, it was any kind of deficiency in her repertoire. And this is the same woman who, beat Emma twice, and Emma was somebody who took Paige to the limit for the NXT Women's title. So Carmella does have a very impressive, as you noted, win-loss record, and Alexa Bliss showed up, and she got the job done. So, again, another superb choice. I completely agree with it. And we know Alexa's going to take on Sasha Banks next week. Should be a very interesting encounter. But with that said, do you have any concluding remarks?
No, I don't.
I don't either. So with that said, guys, this has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. What did you think of NXT this week? What chances do you give our newly crowned number one contenders, Enzo and Big Cass, of dethroning the current champions, Blake and Murphy? Are you looking forward to Alex Riley versus Kevin Owens next week? Be sure to take the conversation over to TWitWoW on Facebook, an amazing pro wrestling group. Also, be sure to check out our TWitWoW subreddit created by Ashton. Really would be interested to see if any traffic picks up on that. And until then, we will see you again for our Monday Night Raw review, where we will see how the dissension between Randy Orton and the Authority, if he has anything else in store for Seth Rollins. I don't even know if Seth Rollins will appear after that ass whooping. But until then, tune in and peace out.